So this is part two. I accidentally stopped recording, so let's continue. Um, Along the way, I managed to find illness a few times and come up with other less than truthful reasons for sleeping in my parents' to sleep in my parents' bed. But more than often than not, I would be alone for the first few hours of each night in that place. The room where the light from outside did not sit right. Alone with that. With time, you can become desensitized to almost anything, no matter how horrific. I had come to realize that for whatever reason, this thing did not harm me when my mother was present. I am sure the same would have been said for my father, but as loving as he was, waking him from sleep was almost impossible. After a few months, I had grown accustomed to my nightly visitor. Do not mistake this for some unearthly friendship. I detested the thing. I still feared it greatly, as I could almost sense its desires and its personality, if you could call it that, one filled with a perverted and twisted hatred, yet longing for me, or perhaps all things. The greatest fears were realized in the winter. The days grew short, and the longer nights merely provided this wretch with more opportunities. It was a difficult time for my family. My grandmother, a wonderfully kind and gentle woman, had deteriorated greatly since the death of my grandfather. My mother was trying her best to keep her in the community as long as possible. However, dementia is a cruel and degenerative illness, robbing a person of their memories one day at a time. Soon she recognized none of us, and it became clear that she would need to be moved from her house to a nursing home. Before she could be moved, my grandmother had a particularly difficult few nights, and my mother decided that she would stay with her. As much as I loved my grandmother and felt nothing but anguish at her illness, to this day I feel guilty that my first thoughts were not of her, but of what my nightly visitor may do should it become aware of my mother's absence, her presence being the one thing which I was sure was protecting me from the full horror of this thing's reach. I rushed home from school that day and immediately wrenched the bed sheets and mattress from the lower bunk, removing all of the slates and placing an old desk, a chest of drawers, and some chairs which we kept in a cupboard where the bottom bunk used to be. I told my father I was making an office, which he found adorable, but I would be damned if I'd give that thing a place to sleep for one more night. As darkness approached, I lay there knowing my mother was not in the house. I did not know what to do. My only impulse was to sneak into her jewelry box and take a small family crucifix, which I had seen there before. While my family was not very religious, at that age I still believed in God, and hoped that somehow this would protect me, although fearful and anxious. While gripping the crucifix under my pillow tightly in one hand. My gosh! While gripping the crucifix under my pillow tightly in one hand, sleep eventually came, and as I drifted off to dream, I hoped that I would awaken in the morning without incidents. Unfortunately, that night was the most terrifying of all. I woke gradually. The room was once dark again. As my eyes adjusted, I could gradually make out the window and the door and the walls, some toys on a shelf, and, even to this day, I shudder to think of it, for there was no noise, no rustling of sheets, no movement at all. The room felt lifeless, yet not empty. The nightly visitor, that unwelcome, wheezing, hate-filled thing which had terrorized me night after night, was not in the bottom bunk. It was in my bed. I opened my mouth to scream, but nothing came out. Utter terror had shaken the very sound from my voice. I lay motionless. If I could not scream, I did not want to let it know I was awake. I had not yet seen it. I could only feel it. It was obscured under my blanket. I could see its outline and I could feel its presence, but I dared not look. The weight of it pressed down on top of me, a sensation I will never forget. When I say that hours passed, I do not exaggerate, laying there motionless in the darkness. I was very bit a scared and frightened young boy. That's fucking creepy. If it had been during the summer months, it would have been light by then. But the grasp of winter is long and unrelenting, and I knew it would be hours before sunrise, the sunrise which I yearned for. I was a timid child by nature, but I reached a breaking point, a moment where I will wait no more, where I could survive under this intimately defiant abomination no longer. Fear can sometimes wear you out, make you threadbare, a shell of nerves leaving only the slightest trace of you behind. I had to get out of that bed. Then I remembered the crucifix. My hand still lay underneath the pillow, but it was empty. I slowly moved my wrist around to find it, minimizing as best I could the sound and vibrations caused, but it could not be found. I had either knocked it off the top of the bunk, or it had, I could not even bear to think of it, been taken from my hand. Without the crucifix, I lost any sense of hope. Even at such a young age, you can be acutely aware of what death is and intensely frightened of it. I knew I was going to die in that bed if I lay there dormant, passive, doing nothing. I had to leave that room behind, but how could I leap from the bed and hope that I make it to the door? What if it is faster than me? Or should I slowly slip out of that top bunk, hoping to not disturb my uncanny bedfellow? Realizing that I had not stirred when I moved, trying to find the crucifix, I began to have the strangest of thoughts. What if it was asleep? It had so much as breathed since I had woken up. Perhaps it was resting, believing that it had finally got me, that I was finally in its grasp. Or perhaps it was toying with me after all. It had been doing just that for countless nights, and now with me under it, pinned against my mattress with no mother to protect me. Maybe it was holding off, savoring its victory until the last possible moment, like a wild animal savoring its prey. I tried to breathe as shallowly as possible, and mustering every ounce of courage I could, I reached over slowly with my right hand and began to peel the blanket off of me. What I found under those covers almost stopped my heart. I did not see it, but as my hand moved the blanket, it brushed against something, something smooth and cold, something which felt unmistakably like a gaunt hand. I held my breath in terror, as I was sure it must not have known that I was awake. Nothing. I did not stir. It felt dead. After a few moments, I placed my hand carefully further down the blanket and felt a thin, poorly formed forearm. My confidence and almost twisted sense of curiosity grew as I moved down further to a disproportionately larger bicep muscle. The arm was outstretched, lying across my chest, with a hand resting on my shoulder as if it had grabbed me in my sleep. I realized that I could have to move this cadaverous appendage if I even so much as hoped to escape its grasp. For some reason, the feeling of torn, raged clothing on the shoulder of this night-time invader stopped me in my tracks. Fear once again swelled in my stomach and in my chest as I recoiled my hand in disgust at the touch of straggled, oily hair. I could not bring myself to touch its face, although I wonder to this very day what would it have felt like. Dear God, it moved. It moved. It was subtle, but its grip on my shoulder and across my body strengthened. No tears came out, but God, how I wanted to cry, as its hand and arm slowly coiled around me. My right leg brushed along the cool wall which the bed lay against, of all that happened to me in that room. It was the strangest. I realized that this clutching rancid thing. I'm doing a video.
You doing a video?
Yeah. Oh shit. Rancid thing which threw great delight from violating a young boy's bed was not entirely on top of me. It was sticking. It was sticking. It was sticking out from the wall like a spider striking from its lair. Suddenly, its grip moved from a slow tightening to a sudden squeeze. It pulled and clawed at my clothes as if frightened that the opportunity would soon pass. I fought against it, but its emancipated arm was too strong for me. Its head rose up, writhing and contorting under the blanket. I now realized it was taking me into the wall. I fought for my dear life. I cried, and suddenly my voice returned to me, yelling, screaming, but no one came. This is a long story. Oh shit. Then I realized why it was so eager to suddenly strike, why this thing had to have me now. Through my window, that window which seemed to represent so much malice from outside, streaked hope, the first rays of sunshine. I struggled further, knowing that if I could just hold on, it would soon be gone. As I fought for my life, the unearthly parasite shifted, slowly pulling itself up my chest, its head now poking out from under the blanket, wheezing, coughing, rasping. I do not remember its features. I simply remember its breath against my face, foul and cold as ice. As the sun broke over the horizon, the dark place, the suffocating room of contempt was washed, bathed in sunlight. I passed out as its scrawny fingers encircled my neck, squeezing the very life from me. I woke to my father offering to make me some breakfast. A wonderful sight indeed. I had survived the most horrible experience of my life. Until then and now, I moved the bed away from the wall, leaving behind the furniture I had believed would stop the thing from taking a bed. Little did I think that it would try to take mine and me. Weeks passed without incident, yet on one cold, frost-bitten night, I woke to the sound of the furniture where the bunk beds used to be, vibrating violently. In a moment it passed. I lay there sure I could hear a distant wheezing coming from deep within the wall, finally fading into the distance. I have never told anyone this story before. To this day, I still break out in a cold sweat at the sound of bed sheets rustling in the night, or a wheeze brought on by a common cold, and I certainly never sleep with my bed against a wall. Call it superstition, if you will, but as I said, I cannot discount conventional explanations such as sleep paralysis, hallucination, or that of an overactive imagination. But what I can say is this. The following year, I was given a larger room on the other side of my house, and my parents took that strangely suffocating, elongated place as their bedroom. They said they didn't need a large room, just one big enough for a bed and a few things. They lasted 10 days. We moved on the 11th. Holy cow. I know he was a little kid. I think he said he was like 8 years old. But if that was me, well, actually, to be honest, my room used to be haunted, but it's all good now. But yeah, but I still sleep with my lamp on. Don't fucking judge me. Cause it still freaks me out to this day, cause it used to be haunted. But yeah, if you guys like this story, I think, hold on. There's Bedtime 2, The Aftermath. I'm just gonna go to his author's page. because I think there's. Look, these are like all the stories that he has written. I read that one right there. Bedtime. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll read the other 4 if you guys want me to. I thought this story was pretty good. So I might read the other 4 if you want me to. Anyways, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, and peace.